Okay, so we're back again. We're testing acid and bases. So I've gathered some household liquids that we use for various things that I have in front of me, and I'm going to test them the same way that I tested the hydrochloric acid right here and the sodium hydroxide. So I'm going to use the pH paper on each of these samples. I'm also going to test with some phenolphthalein, which if you'll remember turned pink when it was inside of a base. So I'm going to start here. I have some phenolphthalein in a syringe. Or a pipette, that is, and I'm going to put a drop into each of these solutions. So this first one is vinegar, which I just got out of my laundry room, and as you can see, nothing happened, which would tell us that maybe this is not a base. I have here this is actually a beer. Oh, let me just get that label out of there. This is a sour beer, actually home brewed by myself, and so I'm going to add a little bit of phenolphthalein in there, and it might be hard to tell because this is a dark color, but it didn't turn pink. Here I have some water, just as a control. So put a drop in there, nothing happens. Here's like a dilute bleach solution that I made up as suggested for pre-treating clothes. And you can see it turned pink briefly for a second, but then went away, which is an indication that either this is really not very concentrated, or that it's at a sort of basic. And over here I have a much more concentrated bleach solution made with OxyClean that's got also some sodium hydroxide mixed in with it. And if you put in some drops, you can see that it turns very pink. So that's the phenolphthalein. And we're back. This time our plan is to try to test those same solutions with some pH paper. So I've got my pliers here. So I'm going to dip some pH paper in the vinegar and see what happens. As you can see, it turns a nice kind of a pinkish color. If I compare it to my standard here, it looks like pretty close to a pH of 3, so acidic. I'm going to try in this sour beer. Back again, we're going to try with the sour beer and see what happens. So I put it in there, and it looks like not too much of a change. Maybe something close to between the 5 and the 7 range. So even though the beer kind of tastes sour, it's not necessarily because it has a low pH. And then moving on to the dilute bleach, I'm going to dip this in there and see what happens. So I pull it out, and it turns maybe a slight green color. A little bit greener than the beer was, so closer to neutral, maybe slightly green. So something like a pH of 7, 7.5. And then last but not least, the concentrated bleach solution, which is still pink from when I put the phenolphthalein in there. Does not turn pink because of phenolphthalein, but rather turns blue. Again, that strong blue color that indicates that it's a very strong or high pH base. So that's sort of the results we had. So remember, we started with what we knew was an acid or a base. Sodium hydroxide is a base, which turned blue and turned pink with phenolphthalein. And then hydrochloric acid, which turned red. And we see a bit of a spectrum between the vinegar, which turned a little bit red, the beer, the water, the bleach, which had slight changes in favor of acid or base, and then the strong cleaner, which turned a nice pink with the phenolphthalein and a nice blue color on the pH paper. So we're going to use some of this information to help us understand the behaviors of acids and bases and try to do some other experiments too.